PMS, like that's a thing, but it's not normal. Like it's not healthy. It's just really common.
Welcome to Evolve, Bree. It is a pleasure to have you here to speak your genius about the menstrual cycle. Beautiful.
Thank you so much, Bree. I'll never get sick of saying my name.
I tell you what, I still remember the first time I ever met another Bree, and it was you. And I remember first, it was at school, and I'm like, oh, everyone was like, oh, there's new girls. I'm like, what are their names? And someone said Bree, and I was like, no one can have my name. But then we hit it off. We were pretty good at school.
Oh my God. I didn't know. I think you were probably the first Bree I met too.
There you go.
Yeah. Wow. And then there were like so many others that just like we had like 5 or 6 at one time. It was crazy. And we're all spelled differently.
I know, right? Exactly. I mean, to give the listeners a bit of insight, Bree and I both went to the same high school, small country town school, you could say. What, there's probably like how many students?
Like 300, if that. P12.
P12, yeah. And you were a year below me. Good times at the college. We love it.
Oh, what a life. Seems like a lifetime ago.
Doesn't it? So much has changed since then. So much. But babe, before we do jump into it, I'm going to ask you 5 quick questions. How well do you know me? Here we go. So for every single question that you get right, I'm going to be donating $10 to the Epilepsy Foundation.
Oh shit, I should have studied for this.
That is everyone's response. Like, you didn't tell me that. Trust me, I've tried to like make them around like high school times. So babe, what was the first ever job that I had?
Oh, I want to say that I'm this is just coming to me. I'm probably wrong, but I'm going to say you did chores / washed your nan and pop's car for money.
What's my favorite AFL team?
Oh, Pies. I know that one.
Who is my favorite current celebrity and also celebrity growing up?
Oh my God, I have no idea. So I'm just gonna lock in. I'm just gonna say Justin Bieber because that's funny.
What's my middle name?
And Louise Richmond.
Not bad, babe. In high school, what was I most in trouble for?
Talking in class.
Not bad, babe. So my first ever job, you were along the lines, I actually cleaned my uncle's house. Yeah, my favorite AFL team, correct, is the Mighty Pies. My favorite celebrity growing up and currently is still Blake Lively.
Makes so much sense.
My middle name is Louise, and you're right, I got in so much trouble for talking and laughing.
Yes.
So good job. Well done, babe. I'm impressed. So my love, I'm going to hand the reins over to you. I would love for you to let the listeners know your genius, who you are, the amazing human that you are. So over to you, my love.
Before I jump into that, I've actually done a little card pull for this call. I did one for you, Bree, one for the listeners, and then one for me, but that's just special.
Oh my goodness, I love this.
So I'll share that. I have like a Healing with the Fairies oracle cards by Doreen Virtue, if anyone's playing along.
I have her cards too, Doreen Virtue. Yeah, of course we do.
Okay, so the one I pulled for you, Bree, is positive expectations.
Standard.
And I'll just do a little I'll just read the mini blurb and then I'll send you a picture of the bigger one. Keep up your hopes, dreams, affirmations, visualizations, and prayers as they will be wonderfully manifest right now. Don't quit 5 minutes before the miracle occurs.
Oh my gosh, that has come into my reality at the most perfect divine time.
And for the listeners, I have channeled, we have body movement. Your body wants to express itself through movement. Listen to your body and it will tell you what type of movement it craves. And I think that is really perfect too, because when we first, maybe I'll segue into my chat, when we first started talking about doing this, you mentioned that a lot of your clients, a lot of your listeners were interested in how they should integrate their training as well as their understanding of the menstrual cycle or the lack thereof. So that's what I'm here today to talk a little bit about the menstrual cycle. I am a certified menstrual cycle coach, which is so fun to say because lots of people are like, what the fuck is that? Like, is that a real thing now? Yes, it is. I'm Gen Z. I've decided it's a real thing. And
Totally.
I have trained for 6 months with a lot of other gorgeous, amazing people across the globe to be able to deliver this type of coaching to people who need it. And basically, a menstrual cycle coach, for those of you who aren't necessarily sure, is someone who can educate you on the menstrual cycle. They can guide you to make certain lifestyle choices based on the different phases of your menstrual cycle and your relationship to it, and also just be an extra pillar of support in your health journey, which, you know, helps connects the dots, helps you approach other health appointments. Yeah, honestly, it's endless, the amount of support that they can give you. And even myself, I've been coached in this particular way, and even I found it helpful. And I was like, wow, that was actually life-changing for me, even though, you know, I'm on mostly the other end delivering it to others. So yeah, today we're going to be talking about that.
Oh my gosh, babe, I'm so glad you mentioned that and spoke about you having a coach, because I think it's so important. Coaches within our field have coaches because we can never stop learning, we can never stop growing and evolving.
Yeah.
So, oh my gosh, I love that. And we do actually I asked my girls a few questions that they might have for you, knowing that I was speaking to a menstrual cycle coach. So exciting. And they wanted to know a lot around, like you said, training and their menstrual cycle, also the phases of the cycle, the 4 phases, or the 2, but 4 phases, I believe. But this is why you're here, to share your genius.
Yes, and I'd love to.
Yeah, and a fun little question I had as well was, why do we sink? Like, why do we sink as women? Like, I've sunk with my housemates. So that's really interesting too. And then, of course, like the cravings around PMS week and all that sort of thing.
Well, it wasn't really covered in my course, but I believe, like, I think there are so many reasons that we sink. I'll just start with that question. And I honestly think it's just a human thing. Like, I know that when we spend time in the same room together, it depends on the amount of time, but usually, you know, within 2 hours, people's heartbeats sync up. And it's just a form of co-regulation. And because I believe that, you know, biology says that women especially are community-minded and bodied people, like it's only natural for them to sync up body-wise, I would say.
And we're energetic beings, right, as well. So it makes sense.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I think it's just like the feminine core human's sense of community. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I like it. I like that. Amazing, babe. So, yeah, love to know more about the 4 phases of the cycle. Give it to me, girl.
Okay, so you were right in saying, like, sometimes it can get a bit confusing. You're like, fuck, I didn't even know there were phases. There's 4, now there's 2. Like, some people think there's 5. Where does it start? I don't know. But I'm just going to go with the common 4, and they are the menstrual phase, the follicular phase, some people have different names for each phase, but I'll just go with these ones: the ovulatory phase, or the ovulation phase, and the luteal phase. I just remember it with the acronym MFOL, which doesn't mean anything, but I just always remember it that way.
Love that.
So each one of these phases, there are distinct things happening in your body. Most people who menstruate are aware of the menstrual phase because, like, you can't really ignore it when you're bleeding.
Exactly. Purging, as they would say.
Yeah. Most people are acquainted with that, and then they might kind of see the other time that they're not bleeding as like the whole other phase.
Totally.
It's just a period in that. But there's so many subtleties in a feminine body. And I'm going to use that term feminine body or interchangeably with like women or menstruators, just to like create a bit more inclusion, because not everyone that menstruates is identifies as a woman. However, they do have womanly equipment, I would say, because women technically is human, adult, female, and non-binary. So let's get into these phases. We'll start with the banging phase that everyone's probably sick of. It's estimated that around 75% of people who menstruate experience difficulty in this phase, and this is the phase just before the period. The luteal phase is the longest phase of the menstrual cycle. It lasts for around 10 to 12 days, sometimes a little longer, sometimes a little shorter. One of the things with the cycle is that everyone is different. Everyone is different. And you can even be different cycle to cycle, and that is dependent on lifestyle. Sometimes it's based on genetics, like it's no one size fits all. So that's why this journey becomes incredibly unique and incredibly empowering for people, because they return to themselves. Anyway, the luteal phase is characterized by the breakdown of the corpus luteum. I'm going to spit out science words at the moment because that's just where I'm going. This is all going to be much more like detailed and helpful in my little free offering, which we'll talk about at the end. So don't worry if it goes over your head. Just be like, okay, I can read it somewhere else after this. But basically, the body is producing more progesterone, and it's getting ready to like shed again because the egg hasn't been fertilized. So in this phase, a lot of people experience uncomfortable cycle signs, like things they will call PMS, which stands for premenstrual syndrome. And I, as a coach, steer away from saying PMS or things like that, because we've literally got such a common experience between menstruators that we have named a certain list or a certain combination of experiences and bodily sensations as a syndrome, when like that just normalizes it further, sort of thing, in our minds, in the medical communities, and that sort of sphere that, oh yeah, PMS, like that's a thing, but it's not normal, like it's not healthy, it's just really common. So that includes, all the things you probably know if you're listening: headaches, fatigue, bloating, cramping.
It's the skin
acne.
for me.
It's the skin for me. Yeah, my skin's going a little bit.
Yeah.
And
the bloating.
the bloating. And I'll just pop in here, like, I am a menstrual cycle coach, and I have been studying the period and the cycle for years now, and even I still experience like all these cycle signs that I talk about now, not as much, but I have the tools and the skills in order to be able to help my body, and that's what I want to help other people with. But it still happens to me, like I'm still human. So that is the luteal phase. So then we reach a baseline with our hormones, and that triggers the separation of the endometrium, or the endometrial lining, and that breaks down through the vagina, out through the vulva, and that's your period. Just a mix of like endometrial tissue, nutrients that was created for the egg that wasn't fertilized. The egg itself comes out, and just blood. Lots of cells.
And during this, I've noticed so many people say, like, the first couple of days it's really heavy, and then there'll be nothing, and then other people are like, it's 7 days that I've got it. Like, everyone's so different, right? And that's okay.
That is okay. Everyone has, like, sometimes even with my sister or my friends, I'll be like, is this a heavy period? Or they'll come to me and they'll ask, like, is this considered a heavy period? Like, is however many tampons or however many cups, like, is that heavy? And the answer is the same. Like, everyone is different. So what's my heavy will be different to your heavy, will be different to someone else's version of heavy. And yeah, it is sometimes based on genetics, but it's also very heavily influenced by lifestyle factors and nutrition and just all the things. It's all connected. So
it is very much.
But yeah, everyone is different. I'll just full stop that. Personally, I probably bleed for about 4 or 5 days, like moderate, and then it sort of peters out a little. I love my period. I love getting my period, which is something I thought I probably wouldn't say when I was in high school, but
oh my gosh, totally. And like, this is so funny that you brought this up, because so many women always say like, oh, I've got my period, like it's a bad thing. I'm like, this is your body's way of telling you it's healthy. Like this is really good. And the other thing is like, you know, talking about like normalizing things, people like assume that having cramps and feeling miserable and all that sort of thing is actually normal. It's like you're not supposed to experience cramps and that sort of thing. And if it is, that's a clear sign to show you something is out of alignment, whether that be hormonal, whether it be lifestyle, your nutrition. Like our body's always trying to tell us something. Like if we just tuned in.
Our body's so smart. So smart. And that is a beautiful way of putting it, tuning into your body, because I really believe that through this work, it's developing your own sense of body literacy, like your own intuition about what you feel, your interoception, which is your embodied understanding of what's happening, like your sensations in your body, which you really begin to train when you engage more with your cycle. Moving on to follicular phase. This is where one of the follicles in your ovaries is becoming more dominant than the rest, and it's got the little egg in it. And then at ovulation time, the egg comes out of the follicle, it passes through the ovarian wall, and then makes the same journey down the ovarian tubes. All the things we just mentioned.
It's the hand signals for me. I mean, if the listeners could be seeing the demonstration that I'm getting, it's the best.
But again, I'm just like really, really simplifying this to breathing through it, because it will be in a place available for you to read. So, okay, what I really want to talk about and what I found really helpful is the concept of inner seasons. And these are all connected to the phases that I just talked about. So to understand inner seasons, we'll talk about the outer seasons: summer, autumn, winter, and spring. Each one of these phases, these menstrual phases, is connected to an outer season. Now, the concept of this is that as cyclical beings, we experience our own inner seasons, which are different to the outer seasons happening at the particular time. So right now, it's winter. It's winter outside, and inside I might be on a very different season depending on my cycle. So the menstrual phase is commonly seen as the winter phase. And the smart thing about this is that you can just think about what you like to do in winter, what you like to eat in winter, how you like to be, and that is a perfect way to support your body and your mind and your spirit in your menstrual time. So I have a lot of friends now who's like, oh, I'm in my inner winter. And so they're doing a lot more like introverted things. They're journaling more. They're eating more hot food, like soups, and just more grounding, nourishing, like very mineral dense foods, and resting more. They're kind of like the bear in the cave, my trainer would say. And
I love that.
Yeah.
It's so good. And that's something I encourage with all of my girls too. It's very much like, I don't want you training if you don't feel like training when you're, in your winter season, or if it's Shark Week, quote unquote, then, it's not necessary for you to be going out there hitting PBs to listen to your body. Like if it wants to rest, rest.
Yes, very, very important. Part of me believes that I was put on this earth to teach people how to rest. Honestly.
Teach me. No, I am getting better at this. I'm getting better at this, especially around, the menstrual cycle. And it's like, if I don't want to force myself to do anything, because if I force it, it's not coming from a loving energy, and that's only going to create more resistance, and then it's not going to be the outcome that I ideally want.
In my experience, it's one of the biggest hurdles for people when they first encounter this type of cyclical care, because we live in, like, currently a world that the default setting is masculine. Like the thing that is most celebrated is like masculine qualities, like taking action, force, sometimes structure, discipline, work. Like,
literally,
that is what is celebrated. And for so long we have been conditioned to believe that we need to be on that same level, we need to be functioning in the same ways for us to be successful, for us to be, you know, to get where we want to be. But
yeah,
we're so different. It's just so different, and that difference becomes very, very real for people who choose to become more in touch with themselves and realize. And it's fucking hard. Like, it's hard sometimes to be like, okay, the world is a bit like this, and that is not supportive for me, but I'm still going to choose to be supportive for me. You know, we're right in that pocket of time in a distinct way. Like, we have been in that pocket of time for a long time, where we can still support ourselves in our feminine bodies, even in a world that seems sometimes set against us.
Yeah, it's very much so true that you've said. I'm so glad you brought this up, because I'm actually going through this at the moment, thinking like I always have to be go, 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 and like quote unquote busy is actually successful. And it's not. It's actually stopping, allowing yourself to be in your body. And when I say in your body, feeling all those emotions that want to be felt. And that is where like the greatest manifestations can really occur, is when you're actually just chilling the F out and doing the things that set your soul on fire. And if you're not doing that, you're just forcing shit up a hill or throwing shit at a wall and hoping it'll stick. And it's just not the case, especially for us females. And I think it's something that needs to be taught more, you know, and spoken about more. So I'm so glad you're, you know, in this field doing what you're doing, and obviously love it, babe.
Thank you. Yeah, I love what you're saying there about, like, when you grip something so tightly, you don't leave any space to receive what you need, what you desire, what the universe wants to give you. Like, you need to give space.
Yes. So funny you say that as well. I mean, I keep saying that, but like everything you're saying is so aligned. And when we say creating space, it's like we can only ever hold so much space, right? Just to give the listeners some insight, we can only ever hold so much space, whether that be like friends or, you know, our ability to hold a certain amount of money and all these sort of things. And then when we get stretched, we think like, you know, I'm being really tested. Life is really challenging right now, but it's actually happening for us, not to us. And then that allows us to either, you know, call in more friends like that are aligned with us, quality friends, or, you know, quality people to work with. Like, you know, we only become more aware of it, and then we can, yeah, like I said, create more success within our lives without staying in that same level. Yeah.
So coming back to the rest idea, that's really important. That's actually going to accelerate your goals. If you're working with your natural rhythms and your body is like needing to rest, that is going to accelerate your goals. I know it is this big hurdle because of the world we live in and the things that we're conditioned to believe from birth, and we can choose to recondition ourselves. We can begin again. So yeah, rest has been, in my experience, one of those hurdles for people. I like to give the comparison that male systems, they have a 24-hour or so hormonal cycle. So every day they're going through one full cycle. Women have a 24 to 31, 24 to 35 day cycle, and that like has room for so much more subtlety, so much more, you know, transition areas, so much more
sensuality.
There's so many fucking flavors, mate. All the flavors of the month, like, yeah. And that's one cycle. So something I've heard someone talk about before is that they did a 7-day challenge with their partner, and you know, he was seeing results after 7 days, but he's been through 7 hormonal cycles, whereas she'd only been through a quarter of one. Like, it's just the difference, and the difference that rest can make. Oh my God, so many things I could say, but let's move on to the follicular stage, which is Spring. Wow. I was like, what comes after winter? Spring. So we talked a little bit about this. It's where the little follicle is maturing and the egg is maturing inside of it. But this is connected with this season of spring. And so in spring, you know, we like to come out of our house. We're done with hibernating. You know, we're still feeling like a little bit dusting off the cobwebs, but our sense of life is revitalized, and you know, we're eating a bit more fresher foods. Maybe we're socializing like a little bit more, and we're just like feeling renewed. And this is a great time because our hormones are on the rise as well. Our estrogen is picking up, so our confidence levels are also picking up. And while we're still like, you know, finding our footing, because there are these parts in our cycle are called transitional days or transitional, you know, sections where we're transitioning from one season to the next. And just like in life, when we transition from, you know, at the end of this month, when we transition from winter to spring, we're slowly adapting, like our bodies are slowly adapting to the rise in temperature, to the difference in, you know, what nature is doing, to the momentum of society as well. And it's the same within. So as without, so within, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
it's above, so below. So,
and that's also when we can be feeling like, you know, we often feel our most leanest or, you know, most confident selves is during that phase, right?
Yeah. So
because I've noticed with a lot of women, that's one of the things, even myself, is the weight fluctuation. It's like, you know, say quote unquote PMS week, like that'll for me goes up like nearly 2 to 3 kilos, like insane. And then obviously my period comes and it'll just like, you know, go back to somewhat normal. But then hitting that spring phase, I'll drop like 4 kilos. Like it's crazy. Like more reason to shine light on not to weigh yourself as your number one tracking tool, because you know, if you're not tracking your cycle, how are you supposed to know? And if you're just hitting the scales or jumping on them, like say that PMS week every month, then you know, you of course you're going to be deflated.
Yeah, definitely. I've heard a lot of people say, oh, I've got my body back, you know, like they feel like they've got their body back, but like they said it in a good way, as in like, but now that I think about it, it's not good.
We should always love our bodies no matter what cycle they're going through or whatever season, you know. It's just like more nurturing that part of the body and being like, I'll love it unconditionally no matter what it's going through.
And that's something that's developed more within me. Like the more that I understand about my own cycle and the more that I give myself space to experience whatever is coming up for me in that cycle, that's where I find like the nuance, and I get to fall in love with all these different aspects of myself and all these different flavors, because you know, I'm acknowledging them, I'm accepting them, and I'm here, I'm like holding space for myself to lean into them, even though, you know, some of them might not be celebrated by society yet, or some of them may not be celebrated by me yet due to whatever outdated, limited beliefs or whatever.
Totally, because we have to acknowledge it first in order for our actions and our behaviors to show others how we'd like to be treated during that phase. So I remember this when I was dating a guy, it was nearly like I was educating him how to actually treat a woman going through this phase. Like we do need that little bit more nurturing, that little bit more love. But we can't do that if we're not doing that for ourselves first. So I think that's really important to, you know, show ourselves that little bit of extra love and attention. Maybe it's snuggling up on the couch for a day and turning on the Netflix and having some popcorn. Like that's okay. Like love yourself. Don't be out there trying to hit PBs in the gym. Like, you know, it's so funny you mentioned about like the menstrual cycle. Just society being very masculine, because I have come from such a masculine background that, you know, during my period, I would be hitting PBs in the gym. And like, I remember talking to you about this a couple of weeks ago. It was just like, you know, I actually love when I'm in the gym because I feel so strong again, like why everyone is so different. But now kind of working on my feminine side, the sensuality side of things, like really bringing that love and nurture into my life, I'm starting to like really see the difference in it all now. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm actually tired now. Not let's go get another coffee and keep pushing on. Like let's actually like go and chill out. Like, you've been up since 4 a.m. in the morning, like, listen to your body. So yeah, it's important.
That's great that you're tuning in. And yeah, I was like, wow, that's amazing that you could be hitting PBs at that time. And the whole conversation of feminine and masculine energy and how we relate to it, and I could talk about that so long. So thank you for sharing that. And even in a few weeks, like, things have changed for you as well. It's just this amazing, ever evolving species that we are. And I love that you mentioned your experience with your partner and like helping them understand, because that is part of where I'm going to be going with my coaching, to be helping couples and like integrating that information within the masculine body, if you would say. Body is in not biological, as in the mass of male people.
Yeah.
So that we can have a connected understanding of what it means to support women at any time of the month and improve relationships for all. So we've talked about menstrual phase, which is winter. We've talked about follicular phase, which is spring. And now we'll talk about ovulation phase, which is summer. Woo! So it's, by now you probably cottoned on to what I'm going to say, but I'll just say it anyway. We're out there, we're being more social, our hormones are like peak, we've got our testosterone flowing, we've got our estrogen flowing, our mental agility and accuracy is on fleek because of the amount of testosterone circulating, and our confidence is out there. This is, as a species, this is when we attract mates. This is when we, quote unquote, become the most attractive. Our pheromones are even like, doing a little bit more work because we are in that very radiant, like magnetizing sense of self in our body, in our cells, and also in our spirit when we're connected to it. So,
yes,
this is a great time to like go out, try new things, socialize, just do something that you normally wouldn't do that you've been wanting to try. Maybe you want to get a new haircut or something like that. And
I know during this is the only time we can, as women, get pregnant, right? Is when we are.
Good. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, is when we are fertilizing. I mean, when we're in ovulation.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for doing that job.
It's okay, because I'm like, this is the only time women can get pregnant, right?
Yes. So women cannot get pregnant, or like menstruators cannot get pregnant every day of the month. There is only a certain window of fertility, and ovulation is technically 1 day, and then give or take either side, just for anyone who's doing natural fertility methods, etc. But there is this misconception that, especially with the use of hormonal contraception and how that's affected the female population and how we interact with it as well, and how it gets very political, but it can easily be conceived that, pun intended, that we are fertile every day of the month, but that's simply not true. Men are fertile every day of the month. However, women are only fertile for a small window of time, and that can be tracked as well using natural methods like fertility awareness method, or that's the only one I'm very intimate with. I don't coach on that. That's a different aspect of coaching, but you learn all about how and when you become most fertile. So yes, thank you for bringing that up.
That's okay, my love. Yeah, because I didn't realize this growing up. Like, I don't think I realized until I was probably 20 that there was only a small window that women could get pregnant. And I think as well, like, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but I'm going to say it, like, this is why we think that we need to be on the pill, right? Because it's like, oh, we can get pregnant every day of the week. It's just like, well, actually, if this was educated, you'd actually know. But it's not like, it's not our fault. Like, we're not to know unless we do the research, the education, and it's really important that we have that awareness.
Yeah, bloody game changer. And that's why I say it's so political as well. That's a massive rabbit hole that maybe I won't.
We're literally like, we won't talk about that. Here we are.
It's like, it's it's so interconnected with what we're talking about. Like it's
part of it all, right?
It's integral. Like it's all connected. It's hard not to talk about it because the origin of this type of cycle awareness is holistic. Like it encompasses everything. So that includes the political landscape that, you know, influences our social understanding, that influences how we relate to ourselves and the beliefs that we create about ourselves and the thoughts we practice and the ideas that we have about who we are. And a lot of people are not aware of that conditioning and sometimes choose not to be, because it's really challenging to overturn that. It's really challenging to change and to accept change. And it's a skill, it's a strength that people
That's where the growth happens, right?
Yeah, full stop. I'll leave that there.
So autumn, what have you got for us, autumn?
Autumn. Okay. So in autumn, everything's kind of slowing down a bit. Like we can feel ourselves start to need a bit more rest. We are, you know, generally returning to that sort of like warming food. We are not stopping exercising, but sort of decreasing volume, decreasing the intensity, maybe doing less cardio, more strengthening and conditioning, doing more mind-body stuff, because this autumn is the luteal phase. So this is the phase where, especially where we are now, like as a society, this is the phase that the whole phase can feel transitional, because this is where all the imbalances, you know, really show up and test us. And physically that can manifest as, you know, injuries. Like it can be easier to injure yourself in this phase because, you know, let's think of like summer. Spring, you're traveling up the mountain. Summer, you're at the peak. You're like, fuck yeah, this is life. Woohoo, we're at the peak. And then autumn is like you're traveling back down. Okay, like you're coming off the peak, but you kind of, oh, but I miss the peak. You know, I miss the view from up there, but like I'm down here. And so, you know, that can be a lot to let go of for some people, because as we said, that peak is also peak masculine energy, peak doing, peak action, you know, peak being seen, like, and that's what's celebrated. So a lot of women will be like, I want to be my summer all the time. How can I be my summer all the time? But, you know, letting go, the autumn can feel like a big challenging transition for some people, and slowing down, like rest, not celebrated in society either. So like the pull to do that is like, and then going inward, you know, just relaxing, saying no to social events. Oh, that's not celebrated either. Well, within certain circles, but yeah, so it can be really, really challenging. But the general rule is like, what do you like to do in that particular season? And that's how you can support your body when you're experiencing that inner season. And the difference, like the length of each season for you internally, your inner seasons, will vary, and it will take some time to understand like how long each season is for you. And it really, like, as I said, it's unique. If you've ever been on birth control, if you haven't, like whatever your history is, that's going to affect it as well. And it's just a process. It's a lovely lifelong process.
Yes, it is. And it's a beautiful phase. It's a beautiful process as well. And the more awareness we can have around it, the more better we can navigate it and not feel so drawn and navigated by society.
Exactly. I love that you said that, because ever since I learned about it, my life has just changed. Like the way that I set up my life is changed forever. And I will take 3 days, you know, at the start of my cycle, and I will do nothing. I will not think about anything. I won't think about work. I won't think about school. I'm studying at the moment, and I'll just do whatever the fuck I want to do, even if that's just like lying in bed. I don't do social media. I just, you know, stay off that for the 3 days, and I just let myself come back to me. Incredible foresight it gives you to be able to support yourself is incredible, because like men, we are not the same day in, day out. And, you know, yes, they have their flavors and they have their cycles too. It's different to us. We have a bit more fluctuation in comparison. Yeah, it's honestly just changed the way that I live my life.
It's like the oak tree, right? It's like it has to have its time to, or any plant, to nourish, to spend time with itself in order to grow. And then when it grows, it flourishes, and then, you know, it starts again. And that is okay. It's the part of the cycle. Like, that is the cycle, and that's accepted. So we need to accept it within ourselves.
Yeah, I love that. If the cycle were a little seed, menstruation would be the seed, follicular stage would be the little sprout, you know, still vulnerable but growing. And then ovulation would be like, you know, really gunning. Like, we've got some leaves, we've got some branches, it's been fab, it's feeling strong against the wind. Boop. And then autumn phase would be, you know, the autumn phase, but as it is for trees. So
right. Yeah, this is so beautiful, babe. I love all that. And like, yeah, you definitely covered the questions from the girls, like the phases of the cycle and why do we sink, and to experience certain behaviors at certain times, and that's okay, but not necessarily the physical symptoms, right?
yeah, I mean, I went on a bit of a tangent sometimes, but thanks for anyone who stuck through. I'll just like do a quick rundown of phases and like training, because I know that that will be of interest. So menstruation, generally rest, like rest as much as possible. That's going to accelerate your goals. If you know, want to, you know, walking's good any day of the cycle. Walking, nice walk, enjoy the beach. Get out in nature. That's a beautiful thing to do. And just listen to your body. Follicular phase, try something new. You might try a new class. You might try a new form of exercise. Just steadily moving up in weights or intensity. Do something fun that, you know, gives you the zest of life, like spring does. Summer, that's, you know, go for it. Bloody gun it. Like, add the weight, you know, do the extra time, go the extra mile, literally. Believe in yourself, hit those PBs, and enjoy it. And then autumn, you know, bring it back down to a simmer. Like, continue doing this.
I love that word, simmer.
Yeah. And like, just focus on the mind. I mean, we're always focusing on the mind body connection, but like when we're training, but especially more so in this phase, you want to do strengthening and conditioning is one. Things like yoga, restorative practices, and I would say probably no inversions while you're doing, like, while you're bleeding. But that's just me, like, you know. So
it's fun finding what works for each individual.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, babe. I'm so grateful that you have dissected the menstrual cycle for us into the 4 phases. It makes it so much clearer and easy, and I can tell you I'll be definitely taking a lot moving forward, and just being more mindful, like you said. So babe, I would love for you to let my listeners know, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram. That's probably the best place to contact me. It's just my name, at Bree Cummins.
I'll put it in the description link for everyone to click and follow you, my love, as I'm sure you'll be sharing lots of content around the menstrual cycle, especially with all of your training and whatnot. I think it's such a beautiful awareness to have, and an experience to go on as a coach and educate so many young females and women, like, of all ages. It's something that we need to know. Like, it's the first thing we start our womanhood with, right? So amazing. And babe, did you say that you have a worksheet or a...
Yes. So I've created like a mini menstrual magazine.
Amazing.
And I would love to offer it to anyone who's listening or interested. Just on Instagram, like, message me, you know, hey, heard the podcast, loved it. And,
yes, I threw it on my stories and tagged you both.
click me your email address and I will send you it in PDF form. And disclaimer, like, don't worry if I don't get back to you straight away. Like, if you message, you know, I don't know when you're publishing this, but like today or, you know, sometime this week, because I'm going away this week, so I will get to you. Just trust and message me your email and I'll send that to you.
Amazing. Beautiful. Thank you, Bree. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your wisdom. It's been such a pleasure having you on.
Oh, thank you for having me, Bree.